Guys, sorry about that. All right, so we're back. Back with baseball sheets, coming back from vacation. Hey, man, how was it? Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll get into this slate. This is a little small one tonight.
Vacation was good. DFS is like in a great place right now because there's like a zillion freaking sports every day. Now you got baseball and basketball, and there's not to mention like NASCAR every week, MMA every week, LOL every day, tennis every day, everything every day. And I'm going to be continuing to play a lot and just try my best to do whatever content I can do. Again, I'm away some weekends and stuff or whatever it is, but and each sport provides like different challenges, So as far as baseball goes, I told you guys I probably wasn't going to be able to like get things going until today, and so I'm going to start put projections up. But so I did play over the weekend. I played like a big buy-in yesterday, for example, and all I did was I looked at what I thought. I ran a couple of projections, sort of, and then I looked at okay, what seemed the most logical guys that I think would make sense that are probably, and then I thought it was going to be too chalky. And so I played one lineup in the 777 and shows what I know about ownership projections, by the way, because I didn't even project the ownership. I'm like, okay, I know he's probably going to be 30% owned, but I figured I may as well take the Brady Singer chalk and just eat it, right? And it turns out nobody played him, and he scored 40 fantasy points. I mean,
Jesus,
nobody has any respect. I mean, for real, So I had him, and then I figured Gausman would be 50% owned, but I guess the reason why he wasn't was because they knew that he was only going to go like probably 65 pitches. I didn't know, you know what I mean? I wasn't on top of, of analysis and content and stuff. So I guess everybody just is kind of like knows that. I didn't, so I just played the two most logical guys, and then. Dude, you know me. These are like my favorite players here. I have my Turang, and then my Josh Jung. I didn't really get into too much of the projection and stuff. I played my Milwaukee like I always do, and a couple of zeros, whatever. They ended up. By the way, Ryan Hoskins. I was actually looking at this. He had the bases loaded with one out, with both of my guys on base and hit to a double play, which could have moved me up a little bit. But I'm telling you, I'm going to be I will be able to tell my grandchildren at the end of this year that I was the only person that ever got to play Brady Singer at 8,400 at 2.8%. And I'm telling you, it's going to be the case. He added another pitch over the season, and he was like my dude for like it seems like 20 years, but maybe only 1 year.
Yeah.
And I will say this: I don't know how many other people got to go 7 innings yesterday either.
No, it's pretty crazy. That's pretty awesome because it's interesting. So far in the baseball season, that's the one trend is the lowest owned pitcher tends to be the highest scoring. Far, that's the trend. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see if it happens tonight. That's a nice start. So
and by the way, I mean, what a start for. I mean, the Dodgers. Are we going to get to see our Dodgers-Yankees World Series after all?
Oh my God, I hope so.
I think we can talk about it. Yankees are 4-0. The Dodgers are it seems like they're 40-0, but they get walk-off home runs. They have that freaking Bobby Miller is doing his thing. You got what's his name? The Yamamoto apparently is really I don't know.
They're really good.
We will see what happens.
Yeah.
But so there are 2 slates today, right? So there's the early slate, which they're calling the featured, but that's only 3 games, and then the 7 p.m. I'll do whatever you want. You want to do the later slate?
Yeah, we can use it as a main slate, but then maybe we talk about the early slate at the end.
Okay, that's fine.
How about that? It's going to be a little figuring it out as we go because the baseball slates are a little funky. So main slate wise, we've got Detroit and the Mets first, right?
Yeah. So I'm looking again. I'm used to some basketball just to kind of see what the layout is. The 7 o'clock and 8. 3 940s, and again, you got to get used to like the difference in MLB and NBA. There's only maybe like one change between now and like luck, and maybe a guy that's hitting second is hitting 8th or something like that. But that's like the only major thing that really ever happens in baseball. And late swap, it's important, but it's not like you have to be on the lookout for so much injury news. And I'm also looking and just eyeballing these pitchers before I even get into the projections. Doesn't look like the greatest pitching slate in the world.
No.
So we shall see. And then I see are the Braves on the slate, or are they early? No, the Braves are early. But you got the Dodgers. I'm just kind of like looking at it, and then we'll get into the projections and all that other stuff. Astros, Detroit Mets. All right. I'm ready to go. So Detroit Mets. So I'll just lead with I guess with my projections first. I mean, it looks to me that Sean Manaea is projecting at least to be, one of the top, if not the top, value pitchers, on this kind of crappy slate. So there's him, and then you got Reese Olson, who I'm just like game log watching, right, from last year. He was, again, this might not be the way to play properly, but 20 fantasy points in his last 3 games, at value against the Mets team, who they could be really awful. I don't know how the season could actually turn out, but it could turn out to be really awful. So I don't know, maybe right off the bat, are both of these pitchers in play? I don't know. Good question. I don't think I'm going to prioritize any of the bats in this game with the other options. But what do you at least think of the pitchers here? Or am I wrong? Maybe the hitting is good too.
Yeah, I like both pitchers. It's 52 degrees. You're in New York, so I shouldn't be telling you the weather, but
yep.
52 degrees and the wind blowing in a little bit, 5 miles an hour. Nothing special. That's what it's at right now, anyway. But not good hitting weather, and 2 offenses that you don't really trust. You've got a 7.5 total. Feels like a pretty good spot to take a shot on both pitchers. I have Manaea a little bit ahead of Olson, but I think they're both very, very playable. And there's not a lot of pitching to love on this slate. So right now I would put these guys certainly right near the top, if not at the very top. I'm not getting to the bats in this game.
Okay.
And then we've got some dome games, which is kind of nice because that actually at least we don't have to worry about the weather early in the year. Like I don't know about for you guys in New York right now, but we've had like floods all weekend. It was pouring. It was nuts up here in Santa Barbara, and yet somehow all the Dodger games still played. I don't even know how that happened, but in Santa Barbara it was pretty nasty. All right, Houston, Toronto.
I don't know who either of these turkeys are, these pitchers. So I'm probably gonna stay away from them. I guess Blanco at 6,500. If he's starting for a decent baseball team, he's probably not the worst. But Houston's a good, obviously a good hitter situation, and Toronto can pound the ball somewhat. So I'm probably going to be off that. I do have Toronto and Houston both not at the top. I got two teams ahead of them, but 2 teams near the top, at least of the list. So if you want to game stack this, and again, I don't even know if that's the way you're supposed to talk about baseball again. Again, I've been out of shape for a while with baseball. And if you did want to game stack this, whatever, and play guys from both these games, both these sides, that'd be great. But each time I think of that, I have to remind myself to ask you about, even though like the starters I'm not too thrilled with, you have to give me like a bullpen update on pretty much all the teams. Like which teams.
Like I always say to everybody, the first month of MLB season, other than just assume the bad teams have bad bullpens and don't even look at a number until the first month is done.
Okay.
Bullpens are like the relief pitchers are bizarre. Like the worst guy one year, the worst starter ends up being the best reliever the next year. It's really hard to figure out. So I like to give it a month. But in terms of your analysis of the game, I feel the same way. Like I think that both offenses are very strong, and I think that no interest in both pitchers. I think Houston's the more obviously desirable offense. I think they've got the higher total. They're playing at home, et cetera, et cetera. I actually like the Toronto side a little bit. So Houston's always going to have a good bullpen, and again, I said wait a month, but in general, they're the team that always has one of the top 5 bullpens. Maybe sometimes maybe 6 or 7. So I'm going to assume that's going to be more of the same this year. But I like the Houston bats, and I think that I think that Toronto will be the lower owned side of the 2. So I'm definitely going to have interest in both of these sides of things for sure. The thing that's going to make Houston it's a little bit harder is they're pretty expensive, the bats you want in Houston, but obviously can be worth it. And if you can get them in, I think that they seem like naturally either 1A or maybe 2 of all the stacks on the slate right now to me, the Houston side, just raw numbers.
Again, I'm picking it up kind of mid-season, but like a week, 4 days behind. So I guess what I should do more of, since this is like my first slate here, is kind of remind everybody of like how I play in baseball. Remember, it is I'm sure you've talked about baseball as opposed to basketball in the last couple of days, whatever. But it's just a totally different sport, than basketball and football, where basketball and football are really, to at least some degree, about having good projections, staying close to the vest, like not deviating too much from the good plays or whatever. Baseball is a freaking wild scene, and the way I play baseball, at least the last year or two, and again last year I had a really good year, is, and when I say a good year, that means like you get lucky in 2 slates. That's what a good year is, right? Is the way I do it is I really use SaberSim and the contest sims or whatever to really help me build the MME stuff. Okay, like the 50 when I play like 50 lineups or something in the 150 max, and that's all I'll play, right? That's the total amount of lineups I'll play in that. Is I will use the SaberSim and the contest sim stuff to build lineups there, and I'll get all kinds of kooky stuff. But for whatever reason, in the big buy-ins, I'm actually pretty content with my hand building process there. I can find the pitchers I want, I can find the teams I want, and I'll use my sheets and I'll use the my stack tools to kind of like gaze at it. I don't, and maybe whatever. Maybe I'm wrong, right, or whatever. I don't use the SaberSim contest sim stuff as much for the big buy-ins as I do for the MMA, and that's just that's just me.
That makes a lot of sense to me, actually. that I understand. And you can always, who's your guy who you always have like a Vargas or something like that, like somebody weird you always have in your hand builds that always seems to get there whenever you win.
Yeah, some idiot.
One of these guys from either Tampa or Arizona. That's all I know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right, something like the Vargas.
All right, so New York and Arizona. I think this is going to be where everybody goes. The New York side is going to be the most popular side of the slate, I think. What do you think?
Yes. So they do look to be the most popular. I like a team better, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't know. Again, the thing with the roof being up, down, or whatever in Arizona with the humidors, but I'm just going to rely on the fact that Yankees have good hitting and Arizona is one of the better hitting parks, but.
It's not really when the roof is closed.
But I don't know. Yeah, exactly. And Ryan Nelson, he can do some stuff. I'm not so sure that the Yankees are such a smash play here. Now, again, as far as projections goes, sure, no problem. But it's also this could be like a preview of something. You know what I mean? Like 180 games from now. You know what I mean? Like one of these are 2 of the top 10 teams probably, again, what do I know? These guys have both not make the playoffs at the end of the day. Okay? But those 2 teams, and so is it already time? It's the first game of the season, but this is the first series, and you got to believe that Arizona's up for this. And I don't know if they're gonna, they're gonna let this game get out of hand, even if the Yankees start to score. It could be one of those like San Francisco Dodger things where come hell or high water, San Francisco's going to make the Dodgers earn it, and maybe Arizona's in the same boat. Maybe they're like, listen, the Yankees are coming to town. They got Soto. They're all hyped, whatever. But we've been doing better than they have, and we're going to stay in this game. And even if the Yankees start to, threaten to score, maybe they won't let the game get out of hand if Arizona does in fact have the bullpen to keep it up. So again, I'm just making excuses. For why I won't take probably the chalkiest team on the slate. But yeah, Yankees do look pretty good to me. I don't actually get too much of the Arizona side as far as the hit, just for whatever. And I'm definitely not getting to either pitcher, except again by the same token, on a tough pitcher slate, I promise you that in my MMEs there will be some Ryan Nelsons showing up. There just has to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually think that's it's kind of interesting. I don't know. Again, I don't think that obviously it is an interesting leverage play, to play a little bit of Ryan Nelson, but I don't know that I'm going to end up getting there. I like the Arizona side a little bit of the bats, and I think that's just a good way to get different because they're so expensive also for good reason in a large part. But I just don't see anybody playing them. So it's going to be hard unless I'm whatever, if I was like max entering something, I think it's hard to profitably stack the Yankees as a person who's playing, 1/16 as many lineups as the guys who are playing everything are. So I just don't think there's any way I'm going to end up stacking the Yankees at all. I don't care how well they project. And I think that Arizona is very similar on the other side. I think Houston and Toronto both make for great alternatives to New York, as do the Dodgers. So I'm okay with letting go of the Yankees tonight. And I think that because of the pricing, I probably get to more of a mini stack on Arizona's side, but like Jock Peterson, Corbin Carroll, and maybe Moreno as a catching option. I think all three of those guys are really, really good plays. So I like the idea of if you're going to play a chalky Yankees stack, maybe you use that 3-man on the other side of it or something like that.
Dude, I'm psyched for baseball because I love talking about baseball because you know that whatever happens, you know, your guys are most likely to score 0 points. And if they don't, you're in good shape.
Right.
And I always say this when we analyze these things. You know, sometimes I'll play a team because it's just baseball. You know, and baseball's weird. You know, the ball, you hit it 1 millimeter up or down, it's either a grand slam or a double play. You know, and it's just odd like that. If you play chalk in baseball, you are just doomed. Okay, and it's kind of hard to understand, you know. Oh my God, I could get to the Dodgers by playing these 2 incredible value pitchers. I saw the other day some freaking clown I'd never heard of was like 55% owned. I guess some rookie or something like that. I had the other side. I played like the Pirates against him, and they scored like 10 runs or something. Some guy with like Q or some guy with three letters in his name or something. I mean, it's just not so easy to get there as chalk in baseball. It's not like basketball when the guy's, you know, starting a point guard, you know, with Luka out and he's going to play 38 minutes. You know, it's just not like that. You know.
Right.
Anyway. Ready to move on to this Boston Oakland thing?
Yeah. So go ahead.
All right. So again, you ain't gonna like it, but so right off the bat, I mean, it's kind of a weak pitching slate, and I just have a feeling that people are gonna go to this Tanner Houck. And he's got some numbers here. Like I'm going back to last year. He's got a 27. He's got a 27. He's got some numbers, but you know what else he has? He's got some negatives. He's got some single digits. He's got whatever. And I don't know where he is. I'm sure he's lurking somewhere in the ecosystem. But wherever he is, Eric Johnson might be smiling because I got no problem taking a shot with Oakland. If in fact I'm right, and Tanner Houck is going to end up getting played. That's just my listen, and it's like we talk about even with is it football? No, even with basketball, like with shooters, or some guys profile you want to play as chalk, and some guys profile you don't. And if I believe that if Houck ends up being chalk, that Oakland in MME, you know, I no way I'm playing them in my big buy-in. But if I get to, by accident, like 15% of Oakland, for example, I'm definitely doing it.
Yeah, I like it. I like Houck for what it's worth. I think that he's probably I think he makes sense as probably the top pitcher on the slate. He and Manaea, I'd say, are pretty close. Joe Boyle's going to get some love. He pitched well in his 3 starts last year. He's a young guy who's sort of, you know, improved on his command. That's what they say, and it's Boston in Oakland, so it's a huge.
That I like. That I would do.
But the thing is, he's supposed to be the more popular. Just so,
oh, really? Oh, I
like as of right now, I mean, within a few percentage points, but still, I'm not sure it's really going to end up as popular as it's projected right now. But like both these guys at 25%, I think I would just go the Houck route personally if they're going to be similarly owned. And I don't have any issue getting to these offenses. However, they don't stand out for me. I think the other offenses on the slate are much better. But I have no issue. This is the way you're going to hear a lot with baseball. No issue if you want to take a shot with the Oakland stack. I'm going to definitely be doing it sometimes this year. This is probably not the day I'm going to do it, but I certainly don't mind it on a small slate. Maybe it is the right time. So I like that. I like that you can get a little, you get a little different with that. And I would have no issue if I ended up with JJ Bleday, who's 3,100 I would end up with some of him anyway, possibly because he's 3,100, likely batting third. I love Zach Geloff as a hitter. I think Seth Brown has power, as does Ryan Noda. So there's guys to like in this lineup. So I don't mind the idea of getting to them in general, but I would probably just end up with, sort of using them as my secondary options. Probably not a full stack for me. All right. Now you've got Cleveland and Seattle. Take it away.
So I've heard about, Tristan McKenzie being a play, I guess. I mean, just because, listen, there's not too much too much here. But I don't know. I mean, he got knocked out of the season in June, right? And then he was out for 3 months, came back and basically, couldn't do all that. I say couldn't do all that much. He didn't give too many innings, I guess. 6 walks in this game against Baltimore in September, then another kind of uninspiring thing. And then they did say that he was late to make his spring debut, whatever that means. And he was just kind of okay. You know me, I'm kind of a sucker for Seattle. The only thing is that I like to, as we talked about this all year last year, I like to play Seattle against lefties if at all possible. So, and it's so funny. I even thought about, I played them a little bit the other day, and I'm like, well, who do I play lefty? I'm like, can't play Crawford, can I? And he's the one that hit the home run. I'm thinking, they only won 1-0 now, so whatever.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, I guess Tristan McKenzie looks fine. On the other side, I don't know much about the Hancock. I'm really not getting to too much of that. But then again, I'm also not really getting the Cleveland hitting, I don't think. So I'll probably get a little of this McKenzie thing, I suppose. I suppose I could play some Seattle also to get to the MME, but they're not a priority.
Yeah, so I like McKenzie. I have McKenzie right there with Manaea and Houck. And I think that they're all similar. I don't love spending on pitchers early in the season. That's something I've been talking about a lot. It's really a bad idea usually because you really don't have that long of a leash. You have to just be incredibly efficient. I mean, nobody's, I think the opening day, nobody was projected to throw more than 91 pitches or something like that. Now, some guys will occasionally go to 95 or something. there's not
Dude, unless you're gunning for the Cy Young like Brady Singer.
Brady Singer. Brady Singer, I'll bet you he threw 90 pitches because he's very efficient with his pitches. I didn't look at the numbers of his pitches, but I would bet you he threw very, very few pitches, considering how long he pitched.
Well, especially when they're up 10-0. I mean,
yeah, it makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to point out that I think people are going to end up getting to Cleveland a little bit today, and I get it, because Will Brennan is probably going to be hitting somewhere in the middle of the order. He's 2,700. Tyler Freeman is batting 6th. He's third base and outfield eligible. He's 2,300. So those plays stand out to at least for a mini stack. But I think it's going to lead people into a little more Cleveland maybe than they're being projected towards. But I'm only using this game for value from the hitting side. I don't see it as a terrific stack or anything. I'm going to win something with the Seattle stack though sometime this year. I just don't know if this is going to be. I don't think I want to take it against McKenzie right now. But I do think there is a volatility, and if it was necessary to get super different, maybe that's a route you could go. Sort of similar to your Oakland thing. I think Seattle makes sense as well. They're just a little more expensive than Oakland. But the cheap bats from Cleveland will probably be something we want to do something with, just because there's just not that much value out there.
So my current runs, as we get to St. Louis, San Diego, my current runs are giving me approximately 400% St. Louis. And I guess part of the reason for that is you're getting a 2K Victor Scott, who is like a pretty much not only just like a lightning base stealer, but also he hit 300 in the minors, I think, as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know where he's going to hit, whatever, but he makes every St. Louis stat kind of work. I don't know what the Waldron guy is, whatever, but my current runs are just getting me St. Louis as being clearly, at least for my numbers, the best overall stack on the slate. So I will just kind of lead with that. Kyle Gibson, I mean, he's a guy who has done me proud on occasion. Okay. On occasion. And I will say that and at 7,900, that doesn't seem actually that cheap for him in this spot. I was expecting when I just saw Gibson at San Diego, maybe I'll take him as a dart throw, maybe 6,800 or something. 7,900 feels a little expensive. But again, if you are going to go to the assumption that the pitching isn't the greatest, if I get to him, I get to him. I'm not going to force myself to do that. Is St. Louis at the end of the day going to be the most popular team or no?
No, the Yankees are.
Okay.
By a lot. I don't like either of these teams personally. Okay. I actually don't think it's the worst idea, the Kyle Gibson thing, but I'm probably not going to do it. It's 59 degrees. There's 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from left. So if I was going to play batters in this game, I'm probably looking at lefties. Nolan Gorman, Brandon Donovan. Those would be the main ones for me. But I don't really like the hitting in this game all that much, nor do I like the pitching all that much. So it's kind of one that I'm just not all that into, to be honest with you.
All right, so we get to this. I guess the 6 implied total in the Dodgers. I just presume they're going to be 6 every game.
It's not 6 actually. It's only only 5 today.
And as I said, what about the last 3 innings?
Right.
Anyway, I'm sure that again for the whole season, the Dodgers are going to be, the Dodgers and the Braves as usual are going to have high run totals and high projections. And depending on what DraftKings decides to do with the pricing, is going to determine how much or how little of them you can play. And that's just the way it's going to be. I currently am not really getting to too much of them today. I don't know exactly why that is, but that's just the case. What I am getting to, and again, you are the expert at how they're going to treat this guy, but like a whole bunch of James Paxton. And like you kind of cautioned like 17 different times in this video, they don't really, when I say they, I mean everybody, doesn't really just run these starters out for all that long. And maybe you could give me some insight on what the Dodgers do and what the Dodgers think about Paxton and what they were thinking of doing with him and stuff like that. Because, on the board, I mean, if he gets things going, you know what I mean? Like he could certainly be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate rather easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have no argument against Paxton. I think that he fits in that same category of the McKenzie, Houck, Manaea. I think Manaea and McKenzie probably have the longest leash, like most of the time here. So that's the way I'm looking at that one. I love that the Dodgers are low owned. You're going to hear this from me every time you see the Dodgers low owned. I am just going to always be way overweight. I think it's really foolish that people aren't going to do it. The only thing you don't get upside wise, and it's understandable because you've got 3 guys over 6K, so it's really hard to fit them in.
Yeah.
But the upside is obviously tremendous, and you also, you have some pinch hit risk for a team that's going to basically be pitching a bullpen-ish game. So there's a little bit of risk for like the Jason Haywards and the James Outman. Well, Outman probably less so. More Hayward, but potentially with Outman. But I just think you want to be overweight these guys. If you can try to find a way to fit them in, I would encourage that you try because I just want to be overweight them in general. It's only 58 degrees in LA, but it is 11-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to center field. So at least they have like that going not against them like the Padres do. So I really like the Houston, Toronto things. I like the Arizona to get creative, but I think Arizona and the Dodgers are where I'm going to end up the most tonight. As main stacks, and if I can get to the Dodger main stack,
I'll tell you though. I mean, you could argue that Ohtani against the righty. You could argue that he's cheap at 6,300. If you want to know the truth.
Yeah, I mean, but you could argue that with Freeman right now. You could argue Mookie Betts should be like 9K because he hits a home run every day.
You could argue that maybe the cheapest of all is Muncy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's like
right. He just hit the home run last night. Yeah, I mean,
sure did.
Yeah, So I'm high on that one. That's what I've got. I've got Manaea, Houck, McKenzie, Paxton as my pitching pool. Houston, Toronto, the Yankees, Arizona, and LA, but Arizona and LA being the ones that I want to primarily focus on. And the Yankees, well, I think they're good. I'm probably just going to have to cross them out personally just because of the ownership on a small slate.
If you play like like something like Olsen and Boyle or Boyle, who's the other cheap one you said? Manaea, right? So if you play Manaea and Boyle, you could play some of the Dodgers, right? I mean,
yeah, you could get it in there, like, and then you probably end up with the Dodgers with the Cleveland guys, like the 2,300 Tyler Freeman
or you could play the Tyler Scott or whatever his name is from St. Louis at 2K.
Yeah, but he's going to be batting 8th or 9th. Like, I don't
think so.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he's ever hit above 8th or 9th. I'm not sure so far this year, at least. Maybe that's 7th one game. I'm not sure. All right, against the Dodgers, I'm pretty sure he's batting 8th or 9th.
What other Dodgers do we have projecting start? Like, does Gavin Lux start this year or no?
Yeah, he's batting 9th.
Well, that's a good one. I mean, 3,200.
Yeah, he's the most value-y piece, but then you probably only get 2 at bats. Well, depends on what the Giants do, but you probably get 2 at bats from Hayward. and you don't really want Hayward that much. So there's really not like everybody else is in the 4Ks or above. So it is kind of hard to build it together unless you use some really cheap bows from another
Does
team.
Mookie Betts play second base or shortstop?
Yeah.
Oh, he does.
Shortstop mostly now.
He does. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it wasn't one of those.
No, he plays he does. He goes out there and he does everything. He's a doozall, but yeah, it should be a fun little one. I'm really liking it. I do think by the end of the day, people are going to find a way to get the Dodgers in for what it's worth. But if the ownership stays the way it is right now, I think you just got to be overweight the situations all the time. Well,
I will just say, by the way, that you play Mania Boyle and you played literally all those Dodgers. Ohtani, Betts, Muncy, Freeman, and throw in Lux. Yeah. And then you play the Brennan, you could totally do this.
Yep. So yeah, definitely.
I mean, you could totally do if that's what you want to do. You know.
Yeah.
And I think because you could do this, I think people are going to do it. So,
I think some people are going to do it. I agree. Yeah, but I still think it's going to be the lower side. It's just mostly going to be, I think, Yankees focused, is my early guess. Anyway, all right. So
hang on. Let me finish this 1 second. So if I did this, do I get to play the MVP?
We're going to get in trouble.
Oh, do I get to play the MVP of Cal Raleigh? No, I don't get to play him quite yet. Okay, all right, fine. So we can't do it.
No, there's ways to do it though. You guys get something going on there.
Yeah.
That's similar to what I'd be looking at. My early builds. Anyway, guys, should be a fun year. Looking forward to it. Oh, we have to do the early games. My bad, Sheets.
Yeah. So for me, the guy I wanted to ask you about was the Shota Imanaga. Because he's the guy who's getting all the projection. He's the guy that's getting all of the build. He's the guy that's getting all my early ownership. What do you know about him? Is he good chalk? Is he bad chalk? That's the one thing. The other guys that I'd be getting to. Wait, what happened? I thought I was getting to him. I guess at the end of the day, I'm not. Okay, he looked good at the beginning, but now I'd be getting other guys. Oh my God, what am I doing here? What do you like anything in this early slate? I was about to talk about this Chicago guy.
Yeah. So okay. So look, it's not really like whether you like him or not. There's not really any options. You've got like Morton, I think, is the most logical option. You do have it is worth noting that the Imanaga does project and seem look like a great play, but also it's 44 degrees with 14-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from center.
Oh my God, that's a disaster.
So it kind of feels like you're supposed to probably, unfortunately, do something like that. But you could get really creative, and I don't know how long Dakota Hudson will pitch. That's the problem. But he's the other side of that game. But yeah, that's why it's kind of hard to ignore. I think that you could instead, though, you could just, if you wanted to feel more comfortable, you could play Morton and Mackenzie Gore. I do think Imanaga has a lot of upside, and I think that it is a really bad Rockies team. They're just one of the worst teams in baseball. So that's something. And then everybody's going to play the Braves, I'm assuming, today, which, understandably. Maybe if you were feeling really frisky, you could play Chris Flexen.
Ooh.
Just to be different.
I was getting to some of that in the MME stuff.
Yeah, I think that in a 3-gamer, that taking a bold stance like that and getting some leverage, I think makes a lot more sense than it does on those 15 gamers where we always have those questions come up. But yeah, I mean, and then the other thing you could do is potentially stack the White Sox, and I really don't think I know this. I'm going to be more full 5-man stacking this year, but on these
look at you
no, I'm looking at me
before the coming to the dark side.
Yeah, I know I am. It's true, but I really like on these 3-gamers. I just think there's absolutely no need to ever stack. I understand if that's how you can do it for what it's worth. Not 61 degrees in Washington, but there's 8-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from center there, and the winds are blowing in from left at 44 degrees for the White Sox also. So really no great hitting. I would take lefties from the Braves before I would take the righties because that 12-mile-an-hour wind blowing in from left. You're just hoping for that home run. I would use the lefties from the White Sox. I would use the lefties. I would just try to try to use more of the lefties in the Atlanta Chicago game. And then it's bad hitting weather also in Washington. So it should be a weird slate. I personally like the unders in all these games. That's one thing I like to start the day.
Well, let me just go back to what you said about the stacking. I want to make okay. So here's an observation that I had last year and the year before for SaberSim, which I'm going to have to see if they've improved on it or not. So if you're going to, I don't want to use the word blindly in the wrong way, but if you're going to rely on SaberSims and their lineup constructions and their sims and all that stuff, you have to be cautious for a couple of things. More in, especially on FanDuel, but sometimes in DraftKings as well. Sometimes they will go way overboard to try to get purity and to get stacks in because of the way correlation works. And you'll end up sometimes, like on FanDuel specifically, getting lineups that look very pretty, that are good 4-4s, that leave like 4,000 on the table or something like that. And you have to really think about if that's what you honestly want to do. Because what it'll end up doing is, let's say it'll have like a 4-man of the Yankees, and then it'll have a choice between having a 4-man of the Tigers or a 3-man of the Tigers and being able to play Mike Trout, right? Mm-hmm. And it'll always give you, or used to always give you, the 4-man Tigers, okay? Right. Including the $2,100 Tiger guy, because it goes well in correlation with the other Tigers guys. But you as a human being, I don't care what it does. I'd rather have a 4K Mike Trout or $4,600 Mike Trout than a $2,100 Reyes or whoever the Tiger guy is or whatever. So you got to keep an eye on that. And in the 2-game slates or 3-game slates, SaberSim might end up doing that to you. I don't know. You might end up getting builds where they look pretty and stacked, but you end up leaving money on the table unnecessarily. Right. So listen, it's just something to fiddle around with. And listen, I'll do as many of these lineup construction videos as I can. Mm-hmm. When we get to lock, when we'll be able to see together whether that type of thing happens or not. So. Mm-hmm. And this is why I like doing this. I mean, it's just learn as we go here.
No, it's awesome. I do want to point out that both these Chicago games, there is real weather concerns that the games may not even play. Oh, now or at least get delayed. But if they get cut off early, which seems like it's very possible, I mean, you'd have to play one player from one of those games, but maybe you play the rest, Pittsburgh and Washington, just as a game theory strategy, including the pitching, just in case they only get 4 innings or 3 innings or 5, whatever. They have to cancel.
What does Roth have orange, or is it just, I mean?
He's got it as orange. And bad storms coming in.
Or either of these opening days?
I actually there's so much in baseball, man. I don't know. I don't know where the Cubs just played in White Sox off the top of my head right now. Okay. But even if they are I don't know. Well, maybe we'll hear before game time anyway. I'm going to probably skip the early slate myself, but I was just trying to think of something you could do to get different. It seems unlikely they would cancel one but not the other. I mean, they're in the same city. Right. But
that would be legendary, wouldn't it?
That would be something. Yeah, that's true. And look at these freaking Washington. Even though their game doesn't start for a while, they're going to tilt me all year because their weather, and they always get their lineups out 5 minutes.
Well, let me ask you something. Is that actually something, or is that an illusion? I remember it was like that 3 years ago with
Washington. They're always like that.
Okay.
These teams all say the same. It's the same thing. It's the same reason why we get the Orlando Magic lineup the day before. You know what I mean? Right. Some teams are just really good at it, and some teams can't.
And then you get Jalen Durant being ruled out in warm-ups.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, K9. Yeah, I just didn't have all that on top of my head. Yeah, that's right. The Cubs did play in Texas. Yeah, that makes sense. So it is the opening day for the Cubs. Wow. That's I think that there's a chance those get postponed. We'll see. Anyway, it should be fun, guys. We'll be live at 6 Eastern to go over MLB and NBA as we did last week, or as I did last week. And it'll be good to have sheets there for some of it.
I unfortunately will not be here.
You're not going to be here today. You're not going to be. Yes, that's right.
But
I'll be there.
Yep. Okay.
All right.